Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's Market Huddle. I'm Joe Lucey. Many of you know me. I'm president and head CEO of Secured Retirement Financial here in St. Louis Park. And I want to thank you all for joining us here this week. Started thinking about the 4th of July and independence around money and what have you. And somehow my mind started thinking about, wow, I cannot believe that the year is half over. So I thought I'd kind of take a quick review of history and kind of what's been going on here for the last 6 months and talk about, our thoughts on kind of what to expect for the next 6 months. So with that said, we're going to start a little PowerPoint here. If somebody can do me a favor and let me know that they can hear me, just click the chat there and let me know that we're live here. That would be great. There we go. Perfect. All right. So, well, let's start with last year. Last year, we here's our disclaimer, folks. I'm not a CPA. I'm not an attorney. We may talk a little bit about some tax planning. We might talk a little bit about some things around estate planning, but I don't do legal documents and what have you here. January 1st, basically end of last year, right after the holidays and everything else, getting ready for 2020, well before any of this COVID stuff, the Congress passed a law called Setting Up Every Community Up for Retirement Enhancement Act. Well, it's a Secure Act. Now, you remember this law? Passed last December. It really made a lot of changes to our retirement accounts. For those of you that have an IRA, 401k, 403b, thrift savings plan, Minnesota deferred comp plan, lots of things changes. Most notably, required minimum distributions were raised to age 72. So that kept most or many families that were planning on taking an RMD, they got a year reprieve. Now we're going to talk about what happened to everybody else here after the event of COVID, which was with the CARES Act. But for those families, unless you were already taking RMDs, we got to wait till 72. Age limit eliminated for traditional IRAs. I've actually had a lot of families ask me about that. Joe, I have a job. I'm working part-time doing some consulting or whatever it is. I'm 71 years old. Can I make a contribution to a traditional IRA? You can. So everybody can make a contribution now as long as you have wages. Social Security pensions don't count. It's got to be W-2 income, self-employment income, things like that. But everybody can be making an IRA contribution even past age 70 or after 70 and a half or 72 after the required distributions. Funny thing happens there, we still can make the contribution. We might have to take some out with the RMDs. We can help you with that if you're in that situation. Schedule some time with us and let's show you how that might work for you. Also, part of that whole idea behind this act was that they wanted to make it easier for many Americans to get caught up with their savings, caught up with their getting ready for setting themselves up for their own retirement. So Congress understands that many families, since the 1980s, we've been told that we're going to be on our own when it comes to taking income out of our 401ks. And yet, traditional investments, stocks, bonds, mutual funds may not always be the best source to bring money back out. So therefore, they made it easier for annuities that are built around generating income to be used. Also, stretch payments to IRAs changed. People that have passed since the first of this year, when your children or grandchildren or whoever that is inherits that, they've changed the way that the rules work, except for some very few exceptions. One would be minor children, but grandchildren were eliminated from this. Anyways, the old stretch provision where I could take money out and stretch it out over 30, 40 years to my beneficiaries when they inherit my IRAs, that was eliminated. What that did for us is it says that now all IRAs, all Roth IRAs, all 401ks have to be completely liquidated within 10 years. They don't care if you do it all in the first year. They don't care if you wait till the 10th year, but it's changed a lot of that. This is making it so that Roth IRAs are far more beneficial for many families because they can let that money, when they inherit it, grow for 10 years and then they take it out, but they no longer can stretch it out over 30, 40 years. In fact, if you are in a situation where that's important, you might want to look at other things like life insurance. So I think personally, it's going to make life insurance far more attractive. I think we're going to start seeing more on it. If it hadn't been for all the virus stuff that came right out, well, maybe that would be something that we'd see a big push on right now. But for now, it's not there. Big thing, stretch payments are gone. If you received an IRA prior to January 1st of this year, you can continue to stretch the IRAs, but anybody that would receive your inheritance, because you're listening to us today, they're going to be forced to liquidate that. Makes Roth IRAs far more beneficial for them. Makes it a lot harder if I have certain situations where maybe family members are more spendthrifts. If they've got a disability that's recognized by the state and the federal government, we may be able to control the payment stream a little bit more than the 10 years. But if there's some of those other disabilities that may not be recognized, spendthrift provisions, divorces, things like that, it's going to eliminate all of that, and it's going to make it a lot easier. So something that we have been spending some time on, or we started spending some time on it early in the year with families, is making sure that they understand all the things around the Secure Act and how that impacts them. If you have not sat down with us to do that, or if you would like to do that, at the end of the presentation, we'll schedule some time. This would be a good thing to spend a few minutes on. Let's make sure you understand how the Secure Act is going to impact your retirement accounts, whether it's required distributions, whether you should be adding to your traditional IRAs, or what it's going to do to your beneficiaries down the road. Something really important. Now, then after this act got passed, all of a sudden, the end of last year, January, end of January of this year, early February, you started hearing these rumblings about this virus that was going around in China, and then all of a sudden it had gone into Europe and everything that we remember what was going on with Italy. February 24th to 28th, all of a sudden the stock market starts to decline. Biggest correction since 2008 occurred at the end of February. One thing, and I guess I'll talk about this a little bit later, but one thing that we as an office really realized, because remember, this is 12 years since the last major market correction. Families, even though we've been talking about it for a long time, families that have mailbox income, money that hits the checkbook each and every month, families that knew where they were going to take withdrawals from their IRAs, tended to feel a lot more confident, a lot more secure with their retirement planning than those families that were taking just random withdrawals out of their retirement accounts. Why? Because starting in February all the way till March 23rd, well, actually, this is March 13th, when all of a sudden they declared the national emergency. Schools got shuttered. Everybody would stay at home. Hospitals there were some concerns about, enough beds, enough ventilators. Remember all this stuff. Seems like decades ago right now, but really it was just a few months back. And then March 20th, we had the Treasury Department announcing that all RMDs could be extended. I'm going to come back to that because on March 23rd is when the Dow hit its intraday low of 18,213. So we saw a 34% decrease in the Dow Jones and the S&P, basically all indices across the board. As I was saying a moment ago, it really, for us as an office, really kind of helped us understand really how important it is to make sure that families are always in a position that they can feel confident about the money that they're spending from their retirement accounts. Money should never be used or risked in the stock market that needs to be used to fulfill an obligation. Now, maybe it was for something else, a luxury type item. Well, maybe then worry more about the stock market. But if it's about an obligation, one big lesson we learned through the big 34% downturn, it's all about mailbox income, money that hits the checkbook each and every month, regardless what's going on Wall Street. Those families felt much more secure than those that didn't. Now, going back to March 20th, because this was a big date here too. Initially, what the IRS or the Treasury Department announced is that you could, you no longer had to take a required minimum distribution in 2020. So this impacted anybody that had turned 20 or 70 and a half the year prior. However, had you not taken a required distribution for 2020, you didn't have to take it out. There were some families that had taken it out, most notably between February and March when this occurred. They were still within a 60-day period of time where they could roll that money back into a IRA. Basically, if they had RMDs that did not need to be needed for income, they could roll it back. But they actually left everybody that had taken their RMDs in January. So a few weeks back here, 2 Fridays ago, maybe it was 3 now, they passed and now allow everybody to do that. So even if you're outside the 60 days, you can put money back. So if you're joining us here today, we may have told you back in March that if you'd taken it in January, you didn't need to, you couldn't put it back. Now everybody can put it back. In fact, if we did tell you that, I think you've probably received some communication on us on this that says that you can. If you missed that, give our office a call, schedule 15 minutes. Let's discuss whether or not you should be putting those RMDs back. That's open to everybody here. If you're a client of ours, feel free to give us a call, schedule that 15 minutes. But if you are somebody that's in our database, somebody that might have received an email invite to this, feel free to join us or have a schedule a 15-minute, what we call a strategy call, identifying the number one thing you can do right now about your retirement planning, whether or not you should be putting those RMDs back. Or I know that a lot of more and more, I want to thank all of our clients that are sharing what we do here at Secure Retirement Financial with others, because we are seeing more and more referrals over the last 60 to 90 days than we have than I've ever experienced in my 26 years of doing this. So I want to thank you for the trust that you're giving us and sharing our name on. So anyways, if you'd like to schedule some time on this, if you took an RMD, let's schedule that. Again, March 23rd, we saw the intraday low. 18,213. Now, up until this, late February, I sat down with my wife. I went home one day and I said, I think, Patty, we should consider doing a Roth conversion. We have some IRAs and we also have some 401k money. I said, the rest of that IRA money, let's go ahead and do a Roth conversion with your money. So we did that in, it was late February 23rd, I think it was. I have to go back in my notes. Right as the market came down, I was a little early. I was able to do my Roth conversion on March 23rd. So my wife is still a little sore that I actually kind of docked it at the bottom. We had clients that kind of did Roth conversions all along the way. It was a huge opportunity, but now we've seen the market come back some. March 27th, they passed the Corona Aid Relief Economic Security Act. This is the CARES Act. So the big acts that have been passed in the last 6 months since part of the review here, the Secure Act, the CARES Act. What was a CARES Act? It was a stimulus package, $2 trillion. Anybody that you know that has business probably is looking at the PPPs and what have you. All of this came out of the CARES Act. Biggest things, required minimum distributions completely waived for 2020. The corona-related distributions, that means that if you are impacted by the coronavirus, whether that means you lost your job, had a furlough, anything like that, you may be able to tap into your retirement accounts. You actually have up to 3 years to pay it back. That's the law is a little bit ambiguous on whether or not I can take this out and do Roth conversions with it. We work with Ed Slott's organization. Those that have been meeting us on these each and every week we've had some of their guests on. It doesn't meet the letter of the law. They think that's going to be something that gets closed down. So I'd caution you to take money out just to do a Roth conversion and wait 2 or 3 years to pay it back. But some of you can do that. So anyways, we're looking at taking out money, borrowing against it, paying it back over 2 to 3 years, and then being able to loan against different accounts has been expanded. So a lot of different things around this to help families that were going through a difficult time, and the markets were acting funny. June 19th, they announced released Notice 2050, which includes additional information on CRDs. The new guidelines make it that there's more people that can actually kind of take this money out. If you are in a position where you were impacted by the coronavirus, again, you don't have to have been may not have to have been positive with a test, but if you have been furloughed, laid off, any of these kind of things, we have some clients that were allowed to or offered kind of a retirement package. They were planning on maybe retiring within a year or two anyways because of the coronavirus, and their companies have decided that they were going to do some more specific things, trying to reduce workforce and what have you. A lot of Delta pilots, Delta flight attendants, Delta, a lot of people that work at Delta, plus restaurant industry and what have you. We had clients from other Fortune 500 companies, 3M, Honeywell, there's a couple that come into mind, a Cargill client. Anyways, all those folks, the CARES Act has kind of expanded on that. If you aren't aware of how that may impact you, I encourage you to schedule the 15 minutes. Let's spend some time to see if there's anything that you aren't aware of in your retirement plan that we should be taking advantage of. June 21st, they announced the release Notice 2051. This is what I was talking about, where all of a sudden RMDs, now you don't have to worry about repaying those RMDs. We have until August 31st. Inherited IRAs don't, you can put your money back into the account. The one rollover year is waived for those that took multiple RMD payments. You had 3 or 4 different IRAs. We can roll all of this back in. So this was the what I was talking about just a few weeks back. They passed this. Now everybody, whether you took out your RMD in January, whether it was an IRA that was your IRA or a 401k that's your IRA, or maybe it was an inherited IRA, all of that. We had a interesting situation here. Client calls me up. He says, Joe, I was supposed to take my required minimum distribution in 2019. I didn't take it because he was going to retire here in 2020. So he didn't take it. He said, okay, I was going to plan on taking it before April 1st, but now that they've canceled it, do I have to take it or not? That's kind of a unique situation, but the reality is because they did not take that first RMD, had they taken it in 2019, they wouldn't be able to put it back in. Instead, because they were going to wait after everybody knows the RMD, you can wait a little bit longer that very first year. They didn't take it. They don't have to take it. So they basically get another full years of growth on that money. So lots of different things have occurred there. All of this brings us back to last Friday, July 10th. Dow Jones closes 2675, 26,075. It's a 30% increase from the lows. We have had a tremendous, crazy, rocky 6 months that's been so hectic, a lot of volatility. I guess the next question is, where do we go from here? Number one, I expect more volatility. I think we have a lot going on here. We're in the summer months right now. Things tend to, a lot of traders and such are on vacation, things like that. As we get back into the fall, I think we're going to see some more volatility. We've got a lot of announcements around school openings, school closings, whether this university is going to open, whether about the local schools, private schools, they have to follow all these different things that are going to go on. So a lot of notification there. We've started to see an increase in uptick in cases down in the south. I'm wondering if that's going to come back to Minnesota here as we get into the fall and things start cooling down and people start going back inside. Yet to see, of course, an election. So we got a lot of different things going on here. We need to start looking at volatility continuing and what that means for your retirement planning. Number one question, are the markets going to go up? Are they going to go down? Are they going to be flat? Nobody knows the answer. We've got another 6 months before we find out how this year turns out. And, there's a lot of economists that think that, we're going to see what's called a V-shaped recovery. That's what we've seen so far. Markets come down and then we recover very rapidly. We never look back. Think back to 1987, that kind of correction. A W recovery would mean that we have to dip back down, maybe even retest the lows. Boy, I can't imagine getting back to 18,000. But there's a lot of families that we serve that Another going back to 18,000 may not be in their the best thing for them. Maybe you found yourself in a different situation here. Maybe when this all started, you were working, you had a paycheck, but now you've retired. Your paychecks have to come from your savings. If that's the case, let's revisit this, because I don't want to see anybody not prepared. I don't know if the markets are going up, down, or flat. I really don't. Nobody does. A bunch of smart people out there telling us what they think is going to happen. We're only going to have to wait until time tells. The question is this: does your retirement planning rely on the market going one direction or another? If your accounts have to rely on the markets going up, let's sit down, let's start to develop a plan, let's revisit on this. It's a great time to do this. We're halfway through the year. We've seen such a crazy year here. Is it going to continue? I'm not sure. So let's spend that 15 minutes and look at that. In addition to that, I think there's 3 takeaways here. I believe wealth management is different than a comprehensive retirement plan. The investment strategies, whether I should be buying this mutual fund or this, there are things that we should be doing in our retirement planning that may make a bigger impact on the overall success of our planning. If you want more out of your retirement, we need to start looking at maybe what taxes are going to do. Let's put together a tax plan. Lots of different things are out there because of the Secures Act, because of the CARES Act, all these different things going on. What we used to be able to do in 2019, we can no longer do in 2020, but what we couldn't do in 2019, maybe we can do. So let's kind of look at your situation. If you haven't scheduled 15 minutes with the team member here, or myself, or somebody else on the team, let's do that. Let's have a discussion around taxes. They're due here in 2 days on Wednesday, on July 15th. That's another one that was passed out of the CARES Act. They extended the taxes. So anyways, lots of different things around taxes. Again, I talked about it earlier. I think of that time in mid-February, all the way down to the market bottom, March 23rd, 18,123. That 34% decrease. Families that had mailbox income knew where the money was coming from. Those that didn't have to take money, they didn't have obligations to pay out of an investment account that just got plummeted. They did a whole lot better. They were sleeping better at night. They weren't calling our office every day saying, what do we do now? Because they knew that they had time. Mailbox income buys us time. In fact, if we put together a good plan around mailbox income, you actually can be more aggressive looking for better growth with your accounts. Families hire us for 3 things. Number 1, Joe, make sure I can maintain my lifestyle. I don't want to have to cut back my lifestyle just because I retired. Number 2, Joe, I hate paying taxes. Let me pay less tax by doing some proactive planning. 3rd thing, Joe, if you can increase my wealth, that's great. Just don't sacrifice my mailbox income, money I can rely on in retirement, and allow me to pay my taxes. So that's what we always remember. Let's look at your risk. Are you taking on more risk than you should? We can do a portfolio EKG. We'll put it on the treadmill every few minutes. We'll kind of kick it up a little bit, see how long the portfolio goes. If we see a W recovery where the markets have to come back down, what does that look like for you? If the markets keep on ripping away here, what does that look like for you too? Let's do that for you. It all starts with a 15-minute strategy call, and we actually set aside 30 minutes on our calendar so we can give you a little extra time if you need it. Again, this is open for clients that are clients of ours. We are open to any of you that are receiving an email on this, and especially if you were referred to the call here today, I encourage you to take us up on this. And let me offer this. It's easy to do. You just kind of put it on the calendar here, and we'll block off some time that we can visit with you. And it should be showing up on the screen right now. With that said, our team's still here for you. If you have any questions, concerns, if whatever the link's not working for you, maybe you don't want to take a side, or maybe you need more time than 15 minutes. That's fine too. Give our office a call. The number's down there, 952-460-3260. Otherwise, boy, can you believe that 4th of July is already behind us? We got another 6 months. Can't wait till we can put 2020 in hindsight. Like they said, we need 2020 hindsight. We get the 2020 behind us here, at least if it's going to continue the way it's been going so far this year. But what a crazy, exciting time it's been. Your planning around your retirement should make sure that you are, if you have a plan in place, you're going to do much better with this kind of volatility we're seeing, which we continue to expect here at Secure Retirement Financial. But If you challenge me, is the market going to be up at the end of the year or down? I still think it's going to be up. I just think it's going to be a rocky ride. So anyways, everybody enjoy the rest of your week, and I appreciate you joining us on this week's Market Huddle. Bye-bye.